Over a week ago, hundreds, maybe thousands of people and trucks rolled into Ottawa to protest mandates and health restrictions related to COVID-19. The Freedom Convoy has occupied downtown Ottawa now for more than a week. And it appears, at least at the moment, that this demonstration isn't going to end anytime soon. Welcome back to inFocus with David Coletto. I'm David Coletto. On this special edition of inFocus, I share the results of a brand new survey of 500 Ottawa residents that my firm Abacus Data conducted over the past few days. Now, this survey came from both an interest in understanding how people most affected by this pandemic and this convoy are feeling, as well as my personal interest as a resident of Ottawa and a business owner with an office in downtown Ottawa. Now, this survey was conducted from February 4th to 7th, interviewing 500 Ottawa residents representative of the city's population. You can find all the details on our website at abacusdata.ca, but I wanted to share a few of the key findings from this survey. First, it's clear that while this convoy, this occupation, this protest, whatever you might want to call it, hasn't affected everybody in Ottawa, 1 out of 5 residents say that they have been impacted either a lot or quite a bit by the demonstration. In fact, those, not surprisingly, living in central Ottawa, 1 out of 5 say their life has been impacted a lot. Another 17% say quite a bit. So the impact is not insignificant when you consider that more than 1 million people call Ottawa home, and 1 in 5 of them say that this has had quite a bit of an effect on their lives. Now, when we asked about the support or opposition to the convoy as a whole, this Freedom Convoy, what we find is that the vast majority of Ottawa residents are opposed to what's going on. 67% say they're opposed compared to 22% who say they support the convoy. In fact, those who strongly are opposed are 4 times as large a group as those who strongly support it, signaling that if this convoy had any support, it's a very small group in this city who support it. Now, what's interesting is that when we look at support across the political spectrum, asking people who they voted for in the last federal election and looking at their responses, a majority, whether you're a Liberal voter, a Conservative voter, a New Democrat voter, say they oppose the convoy. 1 out of 5 Conservatives support it, 12% of Liberals, and 16% of New Democrats. Given the attention and support that many in the federal Conservative caucus, including local Ottawa MP Pierre Poilievre, the fact that 64% of your own voters in this city oppose it, raises some questions. Also of note is the age gap that we see in a lot of these questions. Younger Ottawa residents more likely to support the Freedom Convoy, although a majority still oppose it. 30% under the age of 45 support it, compared to 16% over the age of 45. Now, one thing is clear. The overwhelming majority, almost consensus, believe that the protesters have had an opportunity to make their point and should now leave the city. 87% across the city believe this, including 88% of Conservatives, 94% of Liberals, and even 46% of those who support the convoy believe, all right, guys and gals, time to go. You've made your point. Now, one of the things that those who have followed this closely, and I've been watching on Twitter and elsewhere, commentary about how our different leaders, the police service, city council, have handled this. Our survey explored this a little bit, and what we found is that, yes, there's a lot of folks around this city who are not happy with the way the police service or Mayor Watson or Doug Ford or Prime Minister Trudeau have handled things. In fact, the Prime Minister, who on many accounts has not played too much of a public role or had much to say about what's going on in Ottawa, gets the highest negatives of all people, with 56% saying he's handled it poorly or very poorly. The mayor is at 38% negative, the premier 47%, the Ottawa Police Service at 40%. But it's important to note the interesting distinction between those who support the convoy and those who oppose it. Those who support it actually think very highly of the police, which I think is telling. with more than half of those who support the convoy thinking the police have handled it well, whereas a majority, or almost a majority, mind you, of those who oppose, a majority of those who oppose the convoy think the police have not handled it well, describing it as poor or very poor. But it's also interesting to note that a large number of people of all political persuasions believe that all of the leaders, whether we're talking about the mayor, the premier, or the prime minister, have done as well as can be expected given the circumstances. And I think that is a telling indicator of the challenge that we understand our leaders are under. The frustration's there. We want this to be over. Frankly, I'm very happy that I don't have to carry the burden of having to solve this problem. Some other interesting data in our release, 60+% believe or agree that you can peacefully evict the demonstrators from downtown by ticketing and towing vehicles and enforcing noise bylaws. Majority disagree that the Ottawa police have done everything they can to deal with this, particularly those who are opposed to this convoy. 2/3 think that the police have not done enough. And when we ask whether Prime Minister Trudeau and Premier Ford should meet with convoy leaders, while 49% say yes, 33% say no, among those who oppose the convoy, opinions are far more split. In fact, more of those who think this convoy is wrong and don't support it at all, most or more think that the Premier and the Prime Minister should not meet with convoy leaders. Now, the last point I'll make is this whole protest, this whole demonstration was driven, at least by leaders, as a call to end all public health measures and restrictions related to COVID-19. And so we asked people, do you support the demonstrators' calls to end these public health measures and restrictions? Here in Ottawa, the nation's capital, 34% say they either strongly support or support ending all public health measures. 66% oppose, including 40% who strongly oppose. And not surprising that there's a wide divide between those who support this convoy. 89% want to see restrictions ended versus only 14% of those who oppose this convoy. There's a fairly clear consensus across the political spectrum here in Ottawa. 3/4 of Liberals, almost 3/4 of New Democrats, and 2/3 of Conservative supporters say that they oppose ending all public health measures and restrictions related to COVID-19 as required or requested or demanded by the convoy. What does this all mean? Well, in the conclusion of our release on our website, I note that these results give us a snapshot of how those living in Ottawa feel about the Freedom Convoy that has occupied the city's downtown for the past week. It shows that most oppose the convoy, most continue to support public health measures and restrictions, and the vast majority think the protesters have had a chance to voice their opposition to mandates and restrictions and should leave the city. Now, dealing with this crisis has been challenging, and the community's reaction to how leaders have handled it has been mixed. Many feel that no one has handled the demonstrations well, including the police, the mayor, the premier, and the prime minister. However, many also think that those in charge have done as well as can be expected given the circumstances. It is telling that the police get the highest grades from those who support the protest, while a majority of those opposed to the convoy think the police service has handled things poorly. For Prime Minister Trudeau and Premier Ford, these numbers offer little relief, as majorities on both sides think they haven't handled things very well. I suspect that if the convoy continues, pressure will continue to build on all three levels of government to act, and support for the convoy's message will likely get overshadowed by the disruption it is causing to not only people living in Ottawa, but Canada's international reputation as well. That's it for this special edition of inFocus. Once again, you can get all the details of this survey on the Abacus Data website, theabacusdata.ca. And I hope to be back with you soon with the next season of inFocus. Until then, stay safe. Hope you're having a great winter, and I'll be back to you shortly. Take care.